Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Let's close our eyes in this moment. Let's take a deep breath. Relaxing now where we're seated. Relax our shoulders, our neck, our jaw. Relaxing our body. Letting go of all the tension of our day, of any sensations, any feelings that do not belong to this moment here. I ask and invite you all to vibrate together tonight, to harmonize yourselves in this moment, feeling the presence of our guardian angels by our side, feeling the presence of all the mentors of the house, feeling Jesus here with us, involving us, surrounding us in light. The topic tonight is one that sometimes can be a little hard for some of us, and we know that a lot of spirits are here with us to listen to this public meeting, to this speech, to learn a little bit more, to understand their vices, their troubles, just as we are. So I want to invite everyone to feel in harmony with this space tonight, to feel in harmony with the light and the good energies that are being poured down on us, that are embracing, involving us tonight, in this moment. We thank you, dear God, for the opportunity that we have to be here. We thank all the good spirits that prepare us to be here today, that help us stay focused, stay committed, put all the efforts to be here tonight. We feel ourselves surrounded and encircled by a team of good spirits that are so joyful to see us all here, vibrating, harmonizing together. So may we open our hearts to receive all the teachings, everything that is going to be brought for us tonight, and also to donate a little love, a little compassion, a little understanding, sending light to all those that are still involved with vices, that are still vibrating in some inferior way, that are still suffering in lower zones, inside themselves. We thank you, dear God, for bringing us the opportunity to be here, to learn, to grow, to evolve all together under your light and your love, your teachings that guides us to do so much good and be so much more. Stay with us throughout this night. Bless us, give us good intuitions, and stay with each one that is here watching this meeting.
To our public meeting. Thank you so much, Anna, for the beautiful and moving prayer. I know that a lot of light is being generated right now, and I thank each and every one of you for holding your hearts open and generating and donating love and compassion during this time that we collectively harmonize for the greater good of all of our brothers and sisters, including those that are here with us on the spiritual plane. As we talk about our topic tonight, which is about drugs and what you need to know. And so, as Anna said, there's maybe many of us may not have this vice now. Maybe we had this vice in this lifetime. Maybe we didn't have it in this lifetime. But seeing as how we are all the best version of ourselves we have ever been because of the law of evolution, we never regress. We always evolve. We might stay still. We might move slowly, but we always evolve. So it is safe to say that all of us have vices in our past, if not this lifetime, then in previous ones. So we just hold ourselves with suspended judgment and with hearts open to be present for what we are learning today. So the first thing is, let's define what a drug is, right? So a drug is any substance that causes a change, whether it's physical or physiological or psychological, but it causes a change when it is introduced into the body. And so we know that there are legal drugs, right? There's pharmaceuticals and alcohol and tobacco and sugar. Yes, sugar is a drug. Sugar is definitely a drug, and that's been documented as such, as being addictive as well as causing a physical change. Is there a question? Okay. So some drugs are illegal, right? There's the drugs that we've heard about, cocaine and crack and heroin and meth. And there's a lot of new sounding drug names that are on the street, like MDMA and ecstasy and LSD, and like there's the hallucinogens. So there's a large amount of illegal drugs on the scene right now. And then some drugs are not even drugs until they're misused. Like glue is glue. You use it to glue things together, except when someone sniffs it to try and change their psychological or physiological state, well, then it becomes a drug. And that's the same thing with paint and aerosols and many other things that, until they are misused for the purposes of modifying our psychological state, then they become a drug. So I think it's important to also think about drugs in terms of anesthesia. And when I say anesthesia, I mean something that kills pain. Because many of us, we may not use any of these illegal drugs, or maybe we don't misuse drugs that aren't drugs, right? Maybe we don't sniff glue or paint or aerosols. And maybe we only use our pharmaceutical drugs that are prescribed to us according to how our doctors have prescribed them. But many of us, when we are suffering, we don't have a practice to hold that suffering. We haven't yet skillfully adopted the practice of prayer when we are suffering, or have not progressed far on the evolutionary path of being resigned and patient with our suffering when it comes. And so many of us engage in other forms of anesthesia. We may, when we're in pain, then we go shopping. Or maybe we engage in other sorts of social anesthesia. Maybe we overwatch TV, or maybe we engage in other behaviors that are unwholesome, but may not be classified as a drug. So I just want us to expand our thinking a little bit, because at the root of any drug use is really, it's this inability to suffer, right? And so the need to anesthetize becomes the driving force. So let's just kind of keep that in our mind, also to help us connect to the content. So all drugs have an effect, right? We know there's the law of cause and effect, right? So drugs have an effect. So, drugs can have a therapeutic effect when they are part of medical treatment, right? We know we're talking about legal drugs that are prescribed to us, and we are taking them as prescribed. Because the drugs themselves are not bad, right? We learned that with the glue and sugar, right? And alcohol and tobacco. These are not bad things. It is the abuse of these things that causes harm, right? And it's really all of the things in our world, if overused, causes harm. So the invitation here is for us to also look to within ourselves and within our lives. Maybe we don't misuse or abuse drugs, but perhaps there are other things in our lives that we are approaching from an abusive standpoint. Maybe we are misusing other things in our lives. So this is something for us to think about.
It's like they say that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Anna.
It's like they say that the dose makes the poison, right? So
say that again?
The dose makes the poison.
Yes.
That, like you said there, the drugs themselves are not bad. The ones that are like prescription drugs in that case, right? But a lot of times we do abuse even from the sugar and other stuff, like you said.
Yes, the dose makes the poison. I've never heard that before. Yes, that's
never heard that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's true with a lot of things, because people say like, is this good? Is this not good? Is this bad? Is it not bad? It depends. Even water, if you drink too much, it can be bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
We have to learn how to be moderate with everything in life.
Yes, to be disciplined and to have some discipline about the way that we're disciplined, right? So it's to be moderate and to approach that with balance. I love that. Thank you, Anna. So what happens when we don't moderate, right? And when we we do more than the recommended dosage, right? Then we have a situation then where we go into the realm of drug addiction, which has it has multiple facets, right? So there's the physical dependence. Physical dependence is when the body physically needs the drug, whatever it is, and there is additional suffering in the body if the drug is not present, right? So, and that can take, depending on the drug itself, it can take many forms. But there's this physical dependence, which is to be separated from psychological dependence, right? Psychological dependence is I feel like I need to have it, but I'm not really going to have any physical symptoms. I mean, I might be annoyed or I might be upset or sad, but these are psychological imbalances. These are not physical imbalances. There's nothing happening to the biology of my body, right? And then withdrawal syndrome. So I just want to make sure there's a line drawn between physical dependence and withdrawal syndrome. So physical dependence is I've got to have it or I'm going to have a physical challenge. Withdrawal syndrome is I have to go for an extended period of time now without that drug. And now my body's going to have some serious impacts. For example, those brothers and sisters who are going through withdrawal syndrome from heroin, the physical symptoms are so bad that there's actually prescription drugs when a heroin addict is in rehabilitation treatment. They actually have to prescribe drugs, legal therapeutic drugs, to help the body rebalance itself, because the physical effects of withdrawal are so drastic and intense. From what is the word? From really chronic gastric problems to an inability to hold food, to an over appearance of shaking. Like it's so bad and intense that the person actually needs some medication to calm just the withdrawal symptoms from withdrawal syndrome. So that's something to be separate just from the physical dependence. Oh, I'm gonna have it, or I'm gonna get a headache, or I'm not gonna feel good, right? Just to make sure we draw that difference. And also, drug addiction is a disorder. It's actually classified as a disease, really it is. And it's considered a disease that qualifies as a disability. If someone is addicted to drugs and can't work, that's actually a legal disability claim, and someone can take time off work and make a disability claim and go into physical treatment for that. So it's an actual disorder that's defined like this. It's a chronic, relapsing disorder that is characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite adverse consequences. And that kind of caught me, that despite adverse consequences, because if we remove drugs from the picture and we just look at our own lives, like how many patterns do we have in our world? Just like think about today, right? Think about the things that we did today that did not generate positive outcomes for us. The decisions and the actions we all took today that did not produce positive outcomes for us. Things we took, so that means we had the law of choice, right? The law of cause and effect in our favor. It was a choice that we made. And many of us can say, we don't have to admit it now, of course, but that we've taken at least one action today that did not produce a positive impact in our world or in the world of our families. Already now, we're no different. Right? We're consciously taking action to do things that are not producing the positive outcomes. They're not producing our spiritual elevation. It's not producing the law of love that we are charged to live from those of us who have made the choice to study and live by the gospel. Then we make decisions to act and speak and think and move and generate love. And when we do not do that with intention, and we intentionally don't do that, it's producing outcomes that are not like in our highest favor. So I just want us to just, keep ourselves not too far away from this conversation and keep ourselves present. So drug addiction is considered a brain disorder because it involves functional changes to the way that the brain circuits, work when in terms of reward and stress and self-control, right? It's the inability. It's a neural disorder that short circuits the ability for self-control. And these changes can last a long time after a person has stopped taking drugs. It does heal, right? And the healing is to stop, right? And there's some multiple treatments available in both physical as well as in the spiritual realm. But it takes a while. And, for many of us also, this self-control is one of the most powerful, impactful, and critical skills we must learn as spiritists in order to grow. We must learn self-control, right? And we can remove drugs from it if if that shoe doesn't fit. But all of us have to have the self-control needed to control selfishness, right? All of us have selfishness as the root cause of the negative patterns in our lives. And when we can begin to become very skilled in controlling ourselves, then we can begin to evolve from that. But before we self-control, we have to first know ourselves to know what it is we need to control. And so that is, of course, highlights the importance of study, which is, of course, why we're all here today. So,
Cara.
Yes.
So the chocolate also is a drug then?
What?
Chocolate.
So chocolate itself, I'm not sure if it's a drug. It's the sugar that's in chocolate.
In there.
But chocolate is a drug. I have not heard that it causes
it will be an addictive substance, because it has caffeine. If you think about dark chocolate. So even when you talked about the withdrawal syndrome, a way that we can imagine the hard time that someone goes through when they have to stop, taking drugs. If someone that likes to drink coffee every day, if you go like 3 days without coffee, you get like a migraine, you get such a hard headache, so imagine that multiplied by 1,000, because drug addiction is much, much deeper. So one thing that the self-control brings to me is that most of the time, the one thing that we need to learn to control the most in ourselves are our senses and the desire that we have to please our senses. So the chocolate, the coffee, the sugar comes to the palate, right? The taste, and our senses in a lot of things. We take pleasure in seeing and hearing and tasting and food, and watching certain things, and that all creates addictive behavior. A lot of the resignation comes on letting go of that, like human desire, and the desire to just please our senses and be pleased, that live for that moment of pleasure, forgetting the consequences, as it says here, despite adverse consequences. So a person buys a box of cigarettes, and it says on the box of cigarettes, this will give you cancer. And the person is there one after the other, and, we know the consequences. We know what that can lead to. But the pleasure of having that substance at that moment is so nice. And it's like, for this 2 minutes, it was wonderful. And then after an hour, you need another 2 minutes of that, because you're fulfilling pleasures that are so short-lived, and not withdrawing from that. We tend to get really tied to the senses. Something.
So if I have to eat like every day a little chocolate, it's not a big deal. The problem is too much, right? When I have to feel the sensation, the good sensation, because I think I'm addicted of chocolate. I need like some, not the whole day, not the every day, but some days I need a sweet, I need a chocolate, I need something. But I have to control myself.
That's a lot of times it's the ego, it's the mind, It's sometimes you let the mind dominate. Like, do I need it? Does my body need it? Am I hungry? No, I'm not. Oh, but I wanted something sweet. So it's your mind.
So I have to work on that. All right. Thank you.
I'll get back to Karen.
Yeah, no, this is the conversation we need to be having, right? And I think, Patricia, you are probably not the only person with us tonight that likes chocolate, right?
Especially chocolate.
I think chocolate's a universal thing. So I would like to paint a picture. So let's put on the one hand someone who has a bag of the best chocolate, like if that's Godiva or Dove, or I don't know what is the best chocolate. But let's say we have a bag and they're individually wrapped chocolates. And we have a 2-pound bag here. And we have one person who likes chocolate. So every day after dinner, they take one chocolate and they eat it. Every day, one chocolate. And the bag lasts, maybe 1 month or six weeks. If there's like 30 or 45 pieces of chocolate, right? Then one per day is like, 4 to 6 weeks for that one bag. So that to me is like moderate use. I don't think that one piece of chocolate every day is going to cause serious harm in the body. From my understanding, I mean, if we have doctors on the call that could say different, but I think one piece of chocolate probably does not hurt. That's this person. Now, on this person over here is a person who does not able to control themselves. And when they see that bag of chocolate, they're going to eat the whole thing because they cannot stop. They dislike the taste. They want to eat the whole thing. After they finish, while they're eating it, it tastes really good. And every piece tastes better than the last. But when it's finished, they touch their stomach and realize my stomach doesn't feel very good. Like I just ate 45 pieces of chocolate, right? They're probably not going to feel good for the rest of the evening, probably not going to sleep very well, probably going to wake up, probably not feeling so good. But then they go to the store at lunchtime and they go buy another 1.5 pounds of bag of chocolate and they go do that again the next night. It's two different things. The chocolate is not bad, right? It's what did Ana Paula say? The dose is the poison, right?
The dose makes the poison. But also, even if you have like the 30 pieces of chocolate and you have one every day, right? And then on the 31st day, the bag is empty. If that disturbs you, then you're gonna know if you have an addiction or not. If you cannot have that, and then you're kind of searching the house to see if there's something else, to try something here, something there, because you're like, oh, I don't have the chocolate. Let me try this grape. Let me try this, that. Then and you cannot stop thinking about that, and the next day I have to have my chocolate. Then you see the type of dependency that you have on that thing, and usually it's all in here. Not that your body needs that. It's our ego that wants that, the pleasure, the sweet,
Right.
the sugar.
And so what Anna's describing is psychological dependence. Now, if you were eating, if let's say it was 5 chocolates a day you were eating, if you're doing that over time, by the 30th day you stop, you might actually have a little bit of a headache if you don't get the chocolate. You might actually have some physical symptoms, right? And then that would be some of the physical dependence. That would be some of the withdrawal syndrome, right? That we're making it, and we're talking about chocolate, right? To make it present for everybody. But this is also the same with other drugs that are not drugs, right? And also drugs that are improperly dosed. Right. So when we think about drug abuse, right, it's a crisis that's rising a lot. There's more and more the instances of drug abuse related deaths, of drug overdoses rises every year. It's not falling. Right, the number of people that are diagnosed with drug addictions, that number is rising. It's not falling. And when I say it's rising, it's not because the population itself is growing, but the percentages of people that are classified in this diagnosis are rising. So this crisis is rising, and drug abuse, it harms like everyone. It's not just a person. It harms like the literal social and moral fabric of this planet, because of the widespread wreckage and fallout in the life of a drug addict. It impacts the vibrational frequency of our planet. It impacts the moral fabric because of not just what a drug addict or drug addicts do in order to make sure there's continued access to drugs, and then the means to secure the drugs. But it's also the behaviors that the being under the influence of a drug generates. And even if the responses to the person who's under the influence of drugs, if the people who are responding are not under the influence, many of us still don't have this self-control. right? To be tolerant and compassionate and merciful to that person who's under the influence and acting in a way that's probably not the highest and best version of their divine selves, right? And it's also occupying an elevated place of importance. Now, it's there are many gatherings now where drugs are handed out just as easily and lawlessly as alcohol or cigarettes. It's almost become normal, and in many circles now, even marijuana is legal in many states for medical use. It's just becoming part of it's becoming part of our society and becoming normalized, and a high degree of importance is placed on it. It's almost the exception now to go to a large gathering of people that's not a religious gathering or a spiritual gathering, and for drugs to not be there. That's the exception now. It's not the norm. And so we're in a place now where, where now that young people, the starting ages of people using drugs is lower and lower. I mean, my 15-year-old daughter was telling me in junior high school, she was already being offered drugs. People are offering to sell her prescription and illegal drugs. In high school, she's 11 years old. And I was like, well, I'm glad you're saying no. She's like, yeah, that's why I don't really have friends over these days, Mom. The friends are not people I really want to hang out with. And that's astonishing, right? It's just astonishing. And we have to think, well, what's the cause, right? What's the root cause of this, right? And I think the basic root cause is just the absence of a more spiritualized view of life. Like I loved what Anna said earlier, that it's this need to indulge the senses. It's this complete attachment to the physical plane and being completely enslaved by our sensations, and allowing the need for sensations and changes in our sensations to drive even against our own best interest, no matter how temporary those sensations are. When we have a spiritualized view of life, Anna, Angie, are we going to say something?
Yeah, I just
Yes,
thought
please.
about something, because you were talking about how some things are just like normalized, if this is even a word, by society. And it just occurred to me that, I work in a place that, all that we talk is about, being inclusive and making people feel welcome and making people feel that they, can bring themselves to work and to study and things like that. And yet, every time that we do something outside of work, there is like drinking involved. And, one of the things that happened to me, I went to a happy hour and I said that I didn't want to drink. And someone was like, oh, what happened? Are you pregnant? And, all these questions. So you were talking right now, and I was having, this epiphany in my mind, like, yeah, every time that we talk about inclusiveness, this also includes, respecting someone else's wishes, the beliefs, if I don't want to drink because I feel that it's not good for me, if I feel that it's not, spiritually good for me, just respect me. Don't push it, I don't know, just thought about that.
Yes, and that's the misery loves company, because when one person takes that morally elevated place, instantly it's the mirror that gets held up in front of us that makes us look, well, why is she choosing that? Should I be choosing that? And then I have to look at myself and say, well, why aren't I choosing that? And then what is the impact? What are the consequences of me making the choices that I'm making? And that's uncomfortable. It's much easier just to convince you to do what I'm doing, so I don't have to think about that. Right? That's the misery loves company thing. It's important that you called that out. And we better be careful that we're not doing that. We better be careful that we're the ones that are doing what you did, Andriata, and saying no, thank you, right, in the most loving and kind and compassionate way possible, right? Yeah. So other causes, right? There's the consequential lack of moral responsibility. It's the refusal to take moral responsibility for many things, for ourselves. Right? So that's what you were calling out, Angiata, right? As folks say, well, wait, well, come on, right? You should do it. And that's when someone's not only not taking responsibility for themselves or their families, or for society, right? Because if I'm going to take myself down into the abyss, that's lack of responsibility for myself. It's also lack of responsibility for my family, because if I go down into the abyss, guess what happens to everyone around me? Everyone in my family is now miserable because they are watching me slowly kill myself. I'm probably not very much fun to be around if I am in this abyss, right? I'm probably not like a wonderful vibrational contribution to family gatherings, right? I'm probably like not someone who uplifts, right, and inspires and illuminates the gatherings I go to, right? And then, and then here I am out in society, right, doing my thing, getting my drugs, showing up like this, maybe acting in illegal behaviors or harmful behaviors, and encouraging other people to do the same so I have company, so I don't have to do it by myself. And I don't have to feel bad about doing it because you're doing it too. And if you're not, then I've got some for you, right? So I love that you called that out. And this comes from Joanna DeAngelis' book, After the Storm. So these are the basic causes. And there's this picture of the ripple, because we have to always remember that every action we take, we are throwing a pebble in a pond. And the ripple goes out. It affects everyone around us. It affects the people that everyone around us have to interact with, right? It affects all of our projects. It affects all of our relationships. It affects and the effects go all the way to the end of the pond. And by the way, this isn't just drugs. This is every action that we take, right? This is every word that we say. This is every thought that we think. This is every person that we interact with. We are always throwing pebbles, right? What do we want our ripples to be? We get to manage that ripple by choosing what we throw, right? And this brings in, of course, the importance of knowledge, right? So also in Joanna DeAngelis' book, she raises several important questions. If we don't understand what we are or where we're going or why we suffer, then there's some consequences, right? And this is also, Joanna DeAngelis has a book called Self-Knowledge, or it's either self-discovery or self-knowledge. But it's a book that takes us into the examination of ourselves, which is critical before we can really have any sort of sustainable, meaningful skill in self-control and inner reformation. Because if we don't know ourselves, it becomes very difficult to understand what are the parts of ourselves that actually have value, that can contribute to our soul's elevation, versus what is only masquerading as valuable and is actually dragging us down, right? AKA what Anna called out is the ego, right? We have to be really thoughtful, deliberate, and strategic about how we undergo, what we are and where we are going and why we suffer, right? Because if we don't do that, then we don't have any understanding of the consequences of drug abuse. If we knew that we were eternal souls, if we knew that we are going to the spiritual world after we discarnate with the same consciousness, the results of every deed that we have ever undertaken, if we don't have the understanding of that the reason we suffer is to expiate the intentional wrongs that we have that we've committed in the past, then we don't understand, right, the consequences of drug abuse and the impact on where we go and how we suffer. We don't understand, that this present life and what we do has an impact, right, on where we're going and how we suffer. And we definitely don't have any basic understanding of the spiritual life, because I can't remember where I read this or which book. I don't know if it was in Messengers or if it was in, I mix up sometimes Messengers and Workers of the Eternal Life. So I'm not sure which one this is in, but it talked about that the spiritual life is the true existence, and this is just a dream, right? That, if someone knows which book that is, and then you can call it out, please. But it's, we wake up from a dream, right? Some of us can remember a little bit of it, but we know we get like the gist of it. And then we have all day, our long day. If we think about even when you go to sleep, how much of your time is really spent dreaming? It's just a little bit, right? And the rest of our time is awake. If we were to flip that and think that all the time that we're normally awake, that's actually our life, that's a better analogy of our life in the spiritual world. And just these little slivers are incarnations. But our brains make us think that whatever suffering we're experiencing right now is going to last forever. And we have to do something to get out of it. And I can tell you, through my own spiritual practice, because I am someone who used to misuse drugs and alcohol very diligently. I was very committed to abusing drugs and alcohol for a good chunk of my adult life. And I can tell you that the main reason that I did it is because I was afraid to feel pain. And the only thing that it was able to get me to the other side of it is after my mother, Spiritism actually, it's actually some Spiritist treatment that got me through the initial withdrawal of it. But being willing to face pain, I want to tell you something about this because I think this is important for us. And this is my personal experience. This is nothing that I've read. You know, I used to tell myself this lie about pain, which is why I used so many drugs. I was afraid that if I let myself really feel the suffering that I was anesthetizing, that one of three things would happen: that I would either go insane, that my brain would literally not be able to hold the suffering, and I would have to be committed to a mental hospital. Number two, that I really was afraid it would kill me. I was afraid the pain would be so great if I let myself feel that I would die. Or the third thing, and this was the scariest one, is that even more scary than going to a mental institution or dying, the scariest thought for me was that if I let myself really feel it, that it would never end, that it would never end. And so I was willing, just to stop that pain, to engage in a lot of drug and alcohol related behaviors that I would not have done if I had had a practice to hold pain and suffering. So, as someone who has who no longer uses drugs or alcohol, and who still has I still suffer like everybody else, but I can say this, is then I learned this even before my Spiritist studies, is that there's something that we can do in addition to our prayers, and in addition to being willing to be resigned, and in addition to asking for the presence of our guardian angels and asking for the presence of Jesus to be with us, is we can be willing to just sit and notice that we are suffering. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist monk, has a beautiful saying that, and this is just the mindful consciousness in the beginning meditation practices, that when we're suffering, we just breathe and we acknowledge that suffering is there. That's the first thing, just breathing in, I know that I am suffering, and I hold it gently. And something happens when we do that. It's the being willing to just acknowledge it. If any of you on the phone have children, or if you have pets, you know that if your child or if your pet wants your attention, they're relentless, right? Mommy, 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 or, woof, 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 and they're insistent. And if you're doing something else, let's say you're reading a book, and the child or the animal wants your attention, they're relentless. And if you say, yes, yes, and you pet them, or you say, yes, child, and you tap them, but you don't give your full attention, well, that dog or that child, they know that they don't have your full attention, right? But if you put the book down and you look them in their eyes and you say, oh, puppy, and you pet, or you say, oh, daughter, or oh, son, and you love them, I love you so much, and you stare in their eyes, they can take that for about 30 seconds and they're gone, right? But if you don't do that, they'll stay 30 minutes straight. They will be mommy, 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 woof, 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 if you don't give it your attention. Well, Thich Nhat Hanh teaches suffering is like that. If we're willing to just stop and just sit and just say, I know that I am suffering right now, and just hold that gently, it's like it leaves. It's not that, my children aren't my children anymore. It's not that my dog doesn't belong to me anymore. My suffering is still there, but that intensity, that relentless mommy, 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 woof, 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 that drops down some. So then there's no need to try and do something else to try and manage the suffering. Those of you that are willing, think about trying this sometime, right? It's a very powerful practice. And then we can begin to, it doesn't mean we don't pray. It doesn't mean we don't meditate. It doesn't mean that we don't call the presence of our guardian angels and ask for strength. It doesn't mean we don't do all of the other practices, but that's an additional tool that has worked for me in case it may work for someone else. So the other thing, if we don't understand the basics of who we are and why we suffer and where we're going, then we also don't realize the impact of drug abuse on our future reincarnations as well. And as we'll see, there is an impact there. So there are some main characteristics of drug abuse, right? And the first one is this like irresistible, insatiable, relentless need for drugs and obtaining them by any means. And many times the means by which people obtain, drug addicts obtain drugs is often as harmful, if not more harmful than the drug itself, right? And so that's definitely deserving of our compassion. And that's for us to really think about. And then there's the increased tolerance and increased dosage. So Ana Paula had talked about that, right? First you need 1 cigarette, then you need 2 cigarettes, then you need 3. It's like your body begins to require more and more of that substance to have that same effect that we're looking for. And then of course, the 2 different kinds of dependence. So this comes from the book Agents of Death. And I think it's, that's a warning sign for us, right? Because maybe again, we don't use illegal drugs. But if we are using substances that are not drugs, but as Anna said, the dose is the poison, if we need more and more of something to get the effect we're looking at, that involves, that's an invitation for us to really be thoughtful and examine and do some interrogation of what we're really doing. What effect are we trying to achieve? And are we in danger of having consequences in our present life, in the spiritual life, or in future incarnations, if we are in danger of impacting our family, our friends, and society. So then there's some signs, right? Perhaps maybe it's not you. So now there's like, say you have someone in your life and they're like behaving a little strangely. There's some indications that you can watch out for to see if you suspect drugs. One is like changes in behavior. For example, if someone is normally cheerful, they have a generally cheerful disposition, and all of a sudden they're just, they're grumpy all the time. Or if someone normally goes to bed, at 8 p.m. every night, and then now they're like up all night, and then they get up at 8, they're getting up at 8 p.m. instead of going to sleep. These are things to watch out for. Lack of motivation, right? If someone's just not interested in doing things, and they used to be, right? So that's something to watch out for. And then of course, lowered performance in school or lowered quality of work. We all have a certain standard that we execute, and if we see that start to drop in one of our loved ones, that's a flag that we should start trying to pay attention. And then we talked a little bit about the insomnia, but like restlessness or irritability. And this is not to be confused, like we're in quarantine, right? We're all a little bit, people's sleep cycles are a little off, right? People are a little grumpy because we're quarantining. That's not it. This is like a drastic departure from what's normal. We've all kind of gradually become a little bit more grumpy, those of us that are not being really thoughtful about how we show up in our world. If we are noticing that we're gradually becoming more grumpy, let's watch out for that, right? Because that's a fluidic vibration around us that produces consequences that may not be what we're searching for in our domestic sanctuary. So we would want to be watchful for that as well. And then like furtive or impulsive attitudes. Furtive is like suspicious, like, looking for like, like a suspicious kind of attitude. So these are kind of like behaviors you'll want to watch out for. This is specifically also for this kind of watching for children, but some of us have loved ones that, maybe we have siblings, or maybe we have our spouses, so which we hope this never happens to any of us, but this is a teaching for us to pay attention to. So some of the other effects: valuable objects disappearing around the home. This is the need to acquire drugs by any means. The presence of pill bottles, debt collections and threats, absences from work and at home. So these are kind of classic symptoms. You would see that when something's not right? Something's, there's a very high likelihood that there is some sort of drug abuse taking place. So then there's effects on the physical body, right? The misuse, remember, this is not drug use, it's drug abuse, right? So there's can be psychological imbalances and hallucinations. The physical body itself can begin to deteriorate, if you've ever seen any before and after pictures. Illnesses, many of which are fatal. There are drastic impacts, right? Drastic impacts. And then there are effects on our personal and our public lives, right? Remember we talked about that ripple, right? There's this one person in the middle, but then there's, we all have these vast networks, right? There's the people around us, and then there's all the people that are around the people that are around us. And then there's all the people that are around the people that are around us. Just one, and that's, the spread of this virus, I think is a classic example of that, right? Like one person can affect a whole lot of people just by getting one other person infected. So this is the same thing with attitudes. It's the same thing with the consequences of our drug abuse. It's also, on the positive, the same thing with love. If we just show one person love, we can have a pandemic of love. What if we did that? Right? So this is not for us to get our minds so negative. It's just to understand the power of our ripple, right? Where, let's throw love pebbles and see what happens to this planet. But drug abuse does bring difficulties into all of the areas of our life, our family life, our work life, our community life, right? That's all of the circles that are around us. And each of these spheres has spheres around it. And then there's the effect on our spiritual body, right? Because drugs release toxins that actually damage our perispirit, right? The perispirit's very delicate, and the structure of the perispirit is impacted by drug abuse. And it also causes insensitivity to spiritual treatment, which, by the way, drug abuse is not the only thing that does that, right? When we are obsessively and compulsively attached to the material plane, we desensitize ourselves more and more to the spiritual plane and to our awareness of the spiritual forces around us. So let's just make sure that we're keeping our minds expanded when we think about that. And the damage to the perispirit happens because what we do to our physical body does imprint on our perispirit, and many times shows up in our next incarnation as a physical impairment or disability of some sort. So if we have physical challenges that are chronic and that we were born with, they're usually a clue, not always, but are often a clue of what some of our activities or injuries in previous lives, or injuries that we have caused. Most importantly here is that even though the physical body drops, the dependence continues on drugs after discarnation. And that's something that's critical to know. Because when we discarnate, right, first we need to know that if it's due to drug abuse, it's an indirect suicide, right? It's a suicide. And it causes a return.
Just a note, legal or illegal drug abuse here. We have to understand, alcohol, cigarettes, all those also constitute, they are still drugs. They're still, so legal or illegal.
That's right. Yep. By sniffing paint, by overeating chocolate, right? If that's whatever it is. If we are not managing our intake of any substance and it causes our death, right? Legal or illegal, that is a suicide, and there's just no way around it. And a suicide causes a return to the spiritual world prematurely, and that means that now whatever we came here to do, that we've cut short that opportunity, right? And many times we come here to heal relationships with people. We come to heal relationships, and if we leave before that's done, now that wreckage from that unhealed relationship comes with us, and now we have another opportunity to do that, right? We leave work undone. And then, again, this is critical, the spirit still continues to feel the need for its effects. That dependence continues. The psychic dependence continues. So now, like the perispirit, it's no longer holding, it's no longer, in a physical body. The spirit's no longer in a physical body. The perispirit is no longer connecting the spirit to the physical body, but the perispirit is still has those sensations. Right, and so then there's still the consciousness of the perispirit, and it still has the need, and it feels like it has a need for a physical substance, even though that's the physical substance is attached to a physical body. And this is important for us to know, especially for our brothers and sisters on the spiritual planes with us, because of that need continues. Many of our brothers and sisters who discarnate from drug abuse now begin to approach incarnated brothers and sisters who are still using drugs in order to enjoy those sensations with them, right? So that's critical. And we see this, the movie Sozinho, the short film Sozinho on the TV Mundial YouTube channel, and the website has a series of short films called Sozinho, or Alone, shows this. And this is the brother on the front is incarnated and he's drinking, and the brother in the back is disincarnated, but still addicted, and is inhaling the fluids and receiving the fluids from the alcohol. And this is a classic example of obsession, right? Because when incarnates use drugs, they also feed the entities that are watching that use. And this also puts that drug abuser, the drug addict, to become a dangerous instrument, right, for the lower spirits. And it becomes dangerous for that drug addict because then they can be incited to get more and more, right? That's also the increasing tolerances. Often is because now you're sharing with another spirit, right? It's not, you're not getting it all. Some of it's going to the friends that are with you. So that's why you need more and more, because more and more friends will come to have that party with you.
That's exactly what happens, because then the person becomes insatiable, because one spirit after the other comes to take that pleasure to and it's not just the incarnated person that is having the desire, but he's being influenced by the discarnated ones that are there to satisfy their vices. Like you said, that continues, it persists after they discarnate as well.
Absolutely, and it can be very insidious. There's this scene from this film where the incarnated brother was like, I'm not really sure if I want to drink, and the disincarnate came around and started tickling his throat, saying drink, drink, and his throat started tickling and itching. So then he went to go drink. So there's just a lot of influence that takes place that won't be there if we're not using drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, we have to understand that if we're, smoking, whatever you're smoking, if you're drinking, alcohol, you're never alone. And
Never
that's
alone.
what this short move brings, that even if you think you are, you're never alone.
Yeah, the title of the movie is Sozinho, ? Right? Alone, ? And the answer is no.
Because he tells his wife, I'll stay here alone, by myself. And he was definitely not alone, as we see in the movie.
Right. So not only are we not alone, I think that's also what's powerful about that movie, is what is so powerful. Am I still sharing my screen?
No, you're stop sharing. I was gonna ask, like, are
Whoops.
you? Yeah.
Sorry. Let me share that again. Not only are we not alone, but we're not alone really ever, right? We're not alone when we are in the Spiritist Center getting treatment. We're not alone when we are showing love to our families. Wherever we are, there's more activity on the spiritual world than there is in the physical world. So whatever we're engaged in, we have company. So let's just think about, what kind of company do we want? And then let's engage in the behaviors that would please that type of company, right? So the treatments that are available in the Spiritist Center, one of them is the Passy treatment that helps in restoring health, and also helping to rebalance the emotions, since a lot of the need for drug-related anesthesia is from an emotional imbalance as well, and also in detoxifying the body. These are just some of the benefits. I mean, there's hundreds of pages of benefits of the Passy treatment, but just in this particular instance, these are some of the things that the Passy treatment does to assist in the restoration of the perispirit, assuming, of course, that the person wants this help, because the effectiveness of the passes are directly proportionate to how much the person wants to receive assistance and is open to doing the work on themselves that is required, because the Passy treatment can't do that work. Right? It can assist in the opening and assist in removing some of the blockages, but the work is still our soul's evolution is our work, right? Oops, I think I'm going the wrong direction here. Oops. Sorry about that. I had an extra slide there. So then also treatment in the Spiritist Center is fluidified water or magnetized water. So magnetized water also contributes to the rebalancing of physical health, right? And complements spiritual treatment, and also helps to absorb the fluids that we receive, the positive fluids from the past, and allows continuation of the spiritual benefits between passes, right? So the many other things that fluidified water does, but these are just a short list of how it helps in the treatment of drug addiction. So we're almost done. There's just a couple of bit more slides left. I would say probably the most powerful treatment, and it's not just for drugs, I think the most powerful treatment for any of life's ailments, for any of our suffering, is prayer, right? Because prayer helps us draw forces, inspirations and trust. It connects us with our higher self. It connects us to the divine energies that are around us. And in that same movie, Sazinho, there's a scene that I saw, it looks like y'all were playing last week in the Get to Know Spiritism class that we hold on Saturdays, every Saturday at 4:30 p.m. if anyone is interested in attending that class and you're not studying with us right now. But I remember seeing one of the scenes from that movie is the wife of the man who was drinking was praying, and she was praying so fervently and sending so much light that we actually saw the good spirits responding to her prayer and mobilizing a spiritual team of helpers to go and assist her and the assistance for her husband that she had asked for. So her prayer connected her to those divine energies. It also lifts up our own energy field. I mean, right, we're dropping pebbles, right? If you drop a prayer pebble versus dropping a complaining pebble, the ripple is going to be different, and so will the impacts, right? So we are ourselves lifted up when we pray, and it raises our own vibration, because who we have to be when we pray is very different than who we have to be when we're complaining or suffering or refusing to be present to our own divinity. And it connects us to God, which is the most important thing. So there's just one more slide here. This is our last slide. This is from one of my favorite books from the Spiritist Center. I could never find this book in English, so I ended up just borrowing this is in English, but I could never find a copy to buy online. So I took this book home and I've been typing it up, and there will be a PDF available to share with anyone who wants it in the very near future. But this is our last slide, and this book is so beautiful to just open anywhere, and wherever you open it, it's the most beautiful thing, and then always so true. So I will read this, and then we'll move on to the passes. So this is from chapter 33, and it says, when facing painful trials, try to maintain unshakable confidence. When a trial shows its worst moments, it is about to end. The zenith of pain is its own nadar. The aggravation of the situation requests immediate solution. The apex of desperation is a sign of coming peace. Everything that goes beyond the limit tends to return to normality naturally. Extreme situations do not last. Despite being deep, the abysm is the origin of the plain. When the night grows the darkest, the day starts to shine. Sadness usually precedes joy. The fall gives strength to a new beginning, and the struggle of the spirit does not end without victory. So this is just a short prayer from the gospel. Good spirits who watch over me, give me the strength to resist evil suggestions, and to emerge victorious from the struggle. Dear Lord, knowing my present existence serves for my advancement, help me to take advantage of it so that I may not waste it, and that when it pleases God to take me from it, I may leave more evolved than when I entered. And that's from the prayers at the end of the gospel. And thank you everyone for listening. Just wanted to pause and see if there were any questions or comments before we go to the passes. Anyone?
Cara, thank you very much for your message. It was so powerful. It was very, you were very brave to share all your knowledge and wisdom, because you associate a body of knowledge coming from all different sources, of course including Spiritism, because we are here in a Spiritist meeting, but also associating with the experience from where the wisdom came. So thank you very much. I'm super happy to be here tonight and with good friends and share a good message, a message of hope, right? This is what Jesus' message is about, that there is a way out for our addictions, there is a way out for us to get better, right?
Yes. Thank you, Rafael.
Thank you.
Cara, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. In many ways, they mirror some of my own. And it's difficult when you make a decision to give up a drug. In my case, one of my cases, it was nicotine. And I had given it up for about 10 years and went out with a group of friends from work for a happy hour. And the trigger was drinking, which caused me to smoke. And I smoked for another 5 or so years and have suffered because of it. But through Spiritism and through just sheer willpower and a lot of prayer, I've gotten through it and have been, if I can use the word, clean now for 10 years. So.
That's a great achievement, my friend. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm happy that you share this, and I'm truly happy to hear such a beautiful story of
A testimony.
the testimony of that. Yes, we can. And
That's absolutely right.
yeah. And like I have a personal story too. I never was addicted to any type of alcohol, but I used to drink. But after I became Spiritist, I completely quit drinking. Not even wine or nothing. Especially after hear what the Spiritist says about alcohol. They classify alcohol as a poison. They don't give any other adjective to this kind of substance. Although we see many advertising people people. It's funny because in the social media, people like to take pictures while they are drinking. And when I see that, I understand it, but I always remember the Spirit's teaching classifying that substance as nothing but poison, which cause too much harm. There's nothing innocent about alcohol. It causes too much harm to our society, to our people. Many people die every year, every day, because of use of alcohol. And I think it's up to us that we have those messages to spread this message, and first change our habit, and second try to spread the message that and make a clear message to everyone that alcohol should never be drink. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael. Anyone else? Just while we have this space open, this is a vulnerable space, and just wanted to honor it in case anyone has anything else they want to say.
I was just going to say that the previous message that you shared reminded me there is a story that people who were close to Chico Xavier or Chico Xavier, they used to tell. They said that right next to his bed, he had a little, like a little art piece that said, "This too shall pass." And he said that he had that right next to his bed, so every time he would be facing, a hardship, or he would be feeling pain, he would remind himself that that pain would not last forever. So, that is a very powerful thing, and it got stuck with me, and it's exactly what this message is saying.
Yes, I love that. And it's so important for us to remember that, because when we're hurting, it just seems like it will last forever. So those messages and staying and studying and studying together and being together is so important, so we can continue to remind each other, of the blessings of service and the blessings of this incarnation. So thank you so much, Angiata. I will turn it over now to Anna to do the passes. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you have some water nearby that can be blessed and during the passes. And Anna, I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kara. Thank you all for sharing, for the testimonies, for sharing the experiences, and for showing us how there's always hope. And I think, like as Raphael shared as well, knowledge is also powerful. It's power for us. When we have the knowledge that we gain here through the Spiritist doctrine, it empowers us to change. It empowers us to make different, to choose different pathways, understanding the consequences that it brings to us. That fulfilling this just moments of pleasure, the consequences the deep consequences that it can have in ourselves, not just in this life, but in the future ones as well. It's always worth it to remember that when we, in this life, we are building up our perispirit for our next one. So everything that we do to ourselves, to our body, that we do in this life, all the uses and abuses that we do and project in this life are reflecting already in our perispirit. And when we discarnate, that is the perispirit that we're going to bring with us, and that is going to be part of our new body, our new life. So if we want to be healthy on another life, if we want to be happy and enjoy more, have more joy, we should be aware of that, of what we're doing today. It has a deep impact. And drug abuse, it impacts not only us, but all the ones that are around us. So it's something for all of us to reflect. I lost a very dear uncle of mine this year due to alcohol, and it was really, really sad to see how things ended. So I pray for all of those that are still in that situation to receive some light, some love tonight, for through our prayers, through our feelings, and everything that we're going to emanate today throughout the passes as well, and throughout this beautiful meeting that we had. So hope it was valuable, for all of us, as well as the spirits that are with us and watching with us tonight. So I invite everyone let's close our eyes. Let's relax a little bit, letting all this information sink in inside of us. And at the same time, feeling ourselves with this feeling of hope, of gratitude for this beautiful doctrine, for all the opportunities that we have in this life. And this being an amazing opportunity that we're having. To be alive is a gift. And I feel that to be alive and here in this world and get to know Spiritism is another gift. It opens up our mind, it opens up our perspective, our perception of ourselves, our understanding of what life truly is, of what and who we truly are. So we thank you, dear God, for being with us, for bringing us this gift, and for giving us the opportunity to follow such a wonderful path and to search for this light, and at the same time being able to spread it around ourselves. So with this hope, feelings of hope, of gratitude and joy inside of us, we're going to prepare ourselves to receive the passes, feeling the presence of Jesus here with us, feeling the presence of our guardian angels right by our side, feeling all the energies that are being poured down on us in this moment. Our room where we are is filled up with energies, with good energies in this moment. We visualize now Jesus walking through the front door of our home, entering our house, our physical house, our spiritual house, entering through the doors of our hearts in this moment. And this master, this dear brother, lovely brother, starts to put his hand over us, and we feel this beautiful waterfall of pure and crystalline waters falling over us, washing away anything that does not belong to us, any heaviness, any sadness, all the difficulties that we carry. Feel this water washing over you. Imagine this water washing away anything that might be bothering you, any weight that you might be carrying with yourself in this moment, all the sadness. Imagine yourself in a room and there's a drain on the bottom of your feet, and everything that does not belong to you, all these negative sensations, thoughts, feeling, emotions, it all goes down the drain. Only pure and crystalline waters fall over you and remain on yourself, on your body, on your aura. Your perispirit, your full body is filled up with light, radiating with this beautiful water, pure and crystalline, that is falling over you. Imagine this water falling over your house, every single room being cleaned out, receiving this purity. All the negative energies being dissipated, all disconnected from ourselves and from our loved ones that are around us and with us. We send this water to bathe our family members, our loved ones, our pets, our children, spouses. And we thank you, dear God, for this moment of cleanse, this moment of feeling lighter, receiving the blessing of the past. We now proceed to the moment of replenishing, and we start to feel a beautiful sunshine. Visualize a beautiful sunshine on top of your head. And then this beautiful golden sun is filled up with hope, is filled up with love, filled up with self-love. Because when we have self-love, there's no need to harm ourselves. It's filled up with clarity, with a lot of light. And we imagine this big sunshine and all these beautiful feelings that we want to fill ourselves up. We start to emanate as rays of sunshine over our head, and this golden healing light start to fall down over you. Imagine like big goblets and droplets of golden, shining, bright, healing light. And it starts to penetrate your whole entire being, falling on top of your head, and each cell of your body receiving this light, receiving this healing, strengthening, replenishing all the energies in your body, replenishing any tiredness with vigor, with strength, with motivation. Feel this light filling up all the organs, all the cells, your mental field, your heart, your emotions, all the centers of force, our chakras, being harmonized, being aligned. We feel this light penetrating our whole house, filling up any room, all the corners of our house, our bedroom. And we ask God, we ask Jesus, we ask the guardian angels to pour this light and surround in love and protection all of our loved ones, whatever they may be. If they are here with us in our home, our pets, our children, our spouses, our parents, whether they're here, whether they're living in a different place, we send them love, we send them light. And now we open our hearts and ask God to send light to all the brothers and sisters, incarnated and discarnated, that are still lost in vices and addictions, abusing drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, smoking, any type of substances that could be poisonous, that could be damaging and harmful. Bring, dear God, this hope, this love, this light, this healing to all of these hearts, because we know that as we talk today, they are suffering, they are hurting. We know that it's usually a lot of hurt, a lot of sadness that lead us to search for these numbing substances. So send them light, dear God. Tell them, let them know that they are loved, and that there's a lot of people here that love them and that wish them the best. We thank you, dear God. We find this beautiful night, all this harmony, this peace. We thank you for this. Very grateful to be part of this moment. May Jesus stay with us, involve all of us, all of our hearts throughout this week, preparing us for our studies this week, and may we be here together again very soon. So it is. Thank you, everybody.